Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I want to do a quick video talking about Hebrews chapter 10 verse 26. So the verse reads, "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins." So a lot of people think that this means if you sin in general willfully after you get saved that you lose your salvation, there's no more sacrifice for sins, but that couldn't be further from the truth. And I'll show you here, we'll go take the context, we'll go verse by verse, precept on precept, and get to the bottom of what this is saying. So it's actually saying the opposite of that. So let's take a look here, starting with who this is written to. So this is written to saved Hebrew brethren. So these are saved people that this is written to. So if we look at Hebrews 3, verse 1, it says, "Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostles and high priests of our profession, Christ Jesus." So these are saved Jews, saved Hebrews, so saved brethren. And then if we look at Hebrews chapter 10, verses 1 to 4, we get the context of this passage. It says, "For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices, which they offered year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect." So the context here is the ceremonial law and the animal sacrifices. So keep in mind that the Jews at this time were still ingrained in their tradition and the ceremonial law in doing the animal sacrifices and things like that. And so this is written about that. That's the context about going back to the animal sacrifices. And if we keep reading here, in verse 2, it says, "For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshippers once purged should have no more conscience of sins." And then verse 3 says, "But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year." And then verse 4 says, "For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sin." So it's clearly saying here that it's not possible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins, these animal sacrifices, and that only Jesus Christ can take away sins. Because if we look at Hebrews chapter 10, verse 12, it says, "But this man being Jesus, after he hath offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God." So it's showing that Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice for all sins, right? So animal sacrifices won't take away sins, but only Jesus takes away sins, right? So that's the context here. So if we go to Hebrews chapter 10, 22 to 23, it says, "Let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water." Then verse 23 says, "Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promise." So it's showing to have faith in Jesus Christ, that he died for all sins. He takes away all sins. He's the final sacrifice for all sins, right? And that's the faith. And that's why it makes sense in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26, when it says, "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth being Jesus Christ, that he took away all sins," and says, "There remaineth no more sacrifice for sins," because it's saying, because of course with animal sacrifices, like it says the blood of bulls and goats can't take away sins, there remaineth no more sacrifices for sins, because those don't work, those don't take away sins. Jesus is the final sacrifice for all sins. So that's why it makes sense there. And then so when it says, "For if we sin willfully," the willful sin here in this context is going back to the animal sacrifices, rejecting the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, right? So that's what the context is. And then here where it says Hebrews chapter 10, verse 27, it says, "But a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries." So this is talking about temporal, earthly judgment. This is not about hell. This is not, because this is written to saved brethren, right? So this is just talking about temporal consequences. This is not about positional salvation. And so that's what this is about. That's the context here, about not going back to the animal sacrifices and having faith in Jesus Christ for the ultimate sacrifice. And a good lesson for today for everyone here is to not go back to the law, right? So if you're saved, not to go back into like trusting in works, going back to the law or things like that to get saved, but to stay in the faith and keep having faith in Jesus Christ for the sacrifice for all sins. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right, God bless.